Hello again. So today I thought I would do a video about using molds, ceramic molds in your microwave kiln. I've seen a lot of questions asking if this is possible and people wanting tips on how to be successful with it. Um, so I thought I would just do a quick video to show you some different tips and tricks and how to be able to do your mold in your microwave kiln. So what you want to be looking for, first of all, is how to pick your mold. So what I like to do, you can search for glass molds or, ceramic molds. Anything that you use in a kiln will work. It needs to be something that can handle high temperatures. So the most important thing is to check your dimensions. So here is the one that I'm going to be using today. You can see it's pretty thick. I'm going to use it in my larger size microwave kiln. Here's the lid. A good rule of thumb is to check your dimensions. So what you want to do is just to measure the thickness of your lid, just to make sure that you're going to have some good space around your mold, because if it is too close to any of the sides, it's going to get too hot and the likelihood of it melting or the glass sticking to your kiln is going to be much greater. So I just measured mine. The width of it is roughly about 4.5 centimeters. I'm going to do centimeters just because it's more universal and it actually was easier to measure, a little more precise. So yeah, so about 4.5 centimeters of the depth of your kiln lid here. This is the larger size. The diameter of this, I just did, the width of the circle here. So it was about 12 centimeters. So again, you just want to make sure that your mold can fit in here, and you can do a little test run. Now, of course, this is the lid. I'm not going to be firing it like this, but just so you can see, there's clear coverage all the way around. There's some gap at the top. So that's what you want. You don't want it to be too close to any side of your kiln. So here's some other ones that I have bought in the past. I've got them from different places. You can also find them on ceramic firing websites as well. I can put a link to some of the places that I have gotten molds before in the description here. But here are some other pendant ones that I have done. I've also done, here, I'll show you. So this one looks kind of rough because it was too big. It was too big. So I did whittle some of these down here. Let me get a better looking one. Yeah, this one's a little bit better. But so if you have to, you can break your molds. I don't really recommend it, but it does work. So like in this case, I did break this one down. You can still use it. So I have still used this mold. What I do is I use some of the other broken pieces and I get it nice and level. And so that way, as long as you spray it with enough zip spray or kiln wash, then it does just fine. And you got to keep it level because the bottom is rounded here. So for broken ones like this, you just want to make sure that you don't have any cracks in the actual bed where you're going to be putting your glass. So any kind of cracks like that are going to leak through. Cracks can get larger. I have gotten some repair solution. So I'll show you this one. I got at, I'm trying to remember where, okay, I got this one at the ceramic shop. But this is for repairing cracks. So this has been really helpful because sometimes you do end up with like hairline cracks if it gets too hot. I have had instances where I did too hot too soon, and or like with more fragile molds, they have cracked. So this wear repair is perfect for that. So you just apply it and then also bisque fire it after that to seal in the cracks, and it works great. It works great. I highly recommend that stuff. So let's get started here after we've gone a little trial and error on molds. I just want you to know that you can use your broken molds or repair them if you need to. So we're going to start here. So first thing that you want to do after you have selected your mold is you want to spray it. So you can use kiln wash. I use boron nitride zip spray. So it's good stuff. You just want to spray. I don't know if you can tell the coloration difference, but the mold is actually like a taupey, like creamy vanilla color. And then this white here is actually my spray. So you want to make sure that you have very good coverage with your spray. If you need to do a couple of coats, you can see this one got a little drippy. But you want to make sure that you've got all your little nooks and crannies covered properly, because you do not want your glass to stick. That's very important. So this is good stuff. Good stuff. Highly recommend for anyone who is wanting to use molds. Another thing I didn't talk about is if you can't find a mold that you like, you can make one. So this is actually a mold that I made and bisque fired in my microwave kiln. I couldn't find a size for, it was a specific bezel that I was wanting to use. So I just made my own little mold here, and it works great. I've not had any problems. If you need to know how to make your own molds, you can look at my other video about how to bisque fire. So you just want to make sure that whatever mold that you make, you do bisque fire before using it for your glass. And again, it is sprayed with the zip spray. So just so you know, you can make your own molds if you're having trouble. So, but today I'm going to use one of my store-bought ones because I like this heart. It's a good one. And it's got a post here, so it's already going to have a hole. So that is good. I'm looking here. Actually, I need to spray this a little bit better. I've got some mold shining through here. Okay. Sorry about that. I had to make sure I had everything sprayed properly there. I found a little blank patch. So it has dried since I've sprayed it. Sorry for that. So now what you want to do is to start loading it up. So what I like to do, especially for pendants, is I like to start with a base of frit. So I prefer a fine frit for my base. You can use medium. I would suggest not using coarse, because what I like to do is use this as kind of a stabilizer. So what I like to do is put down just a fine layer of it, and that's going to help your pieces, your irregular pieces, kind of level out. So this is just some bullseye 90 coefficient black frit. I use the opalescent. You can pretty much use whatever color you want to do. It doesn't really matter. The trick with molds is your base that's touching the mold here, this bottom face, is going to be rough. So that's very important to think about when you're layering your colors, because your top is actually going to be your front-facing piece. So especially if you have something that's more detailed, you want to keep that in mind. You can fire polish it to make it less rough, but you will probably lose some of the definition if you have any more intricate molds. So just to keep that in mind. So I'm just going to put just a fine layer here. And this is going to be our base, and that's going to help us level everything out. Another thing I like to do, so I'll put like black frit down, and then layer it with like dichroic pieces that have a black back. So like these have black already on the back. If you do something other than black, I would recommend using more of a transparent dichroic, like this one. This one's really nice. It is on clear. So if you want to keep that underneath color, which can be really fun to play with if you do colors underneath and then start layering different dichroic on top of that, you can get some really neat outcome from that. So you can, use other colors. Just keep in mind, I would use clear. So, but for today, I'm going to use mostly black backed dichroic. So then you just start layering, just designing it how you want to. I wouldn't worry too much as far as, placing things. It can just be fun to mess around with. You can mix, dichroic with regular. I like to clean my pieces a little bit before I place them here. But really, you just want to layer your pieces. It's a great way to use up your scrap glass. And so I'm probably going to fast forward through this process, but you can kind of see laying pieces. And like, again, just, it's nice to layer things. So I'm going to put down like my bottom layer, and then I'm going to start layering with like some clear dichroic pieces. And I'll probably trim some things. So trimming glass, I use my wheel tile nippers. So unless you're wanting like a super straight edge or something like that, this is a good choice, especially for like small pieces. So like any of these bigger ones that I'm wanting to incorporate, but not this big, I can just trim these. I like to angle them down so they don't fly off everywhere. This is a nice etched dichroic here. Those are nice to kind of throw in. They always have really pretty patterns. So it's nice to kind of give it a little something something there. It's also a good time, like I've got some failed pieces here. So like this is one that lost its shape. I fired it too long. You can throw some of these in here because everything's kind of going to get melted together. So, anything you want to throw in here. Molds are very liberating because, you can like pretty much do whatever you want with this. I love using these because it's a great way to use up some glass that's just been sitting around, all these like little small pieces. I like to trim little small pieces to go around the pendant loop. And it's okay, like that's not laying perfectly flat. It's fine. If there's any gaps or anything like that, it's all going to melt into one. So I've not really had any problems with any kind of bubbles or anything like that. But you can just lay pieces on top of each other, depending on what aesthetic you're going for. Today I'm kind of going for like a patchwork kind of thing, but it really just depends on what you're feeling that day. So, and today I'm going with more of a blue vibe. So I've got a lot of blues and greens. I'm adding a little bit of purples in here. It's okay if these are layered on top of each other. Another thing I want to tell you to use, tweezers. So I have all variety of tweezers. These are super helpful, especially in glassworking, for adjusting where you want things. If you're trying to get in tight places, just to adjust things. You can also adjust things while you're firing with tweezers. So I highly recommend getting you a whole set of like different shapes and sizes. I've got some super long ones for when, pieces are hot. So yeah, highly recommend some tweezers here. But yeah, I'm just gonna work on laying some dichroic down here, and then I will talk again when it's time to put our top clear layer. So I'm just gonna work on this here. Isn't that pretty? Actually, okay, so I've got my base layer down here. Now I'm going to layer it with a little bit of clear here. So it just adds some dimension. I really like adding some dichroic with clear. It doesn't really matter if you've got your coated side up or down, because we are going to add a thick layer of just clear on top of this. So you don't have to worry too much as far as which side is which. So that's very liberating here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this pretty clear dichroic here. It's got this really nice iridescent shine to it. And again, it's just going to add a little more dimension. I'm going to add some of this iridescent ridged. It's got these nice stripes. So anything that you can do to just make it a little more interesting, it really makes a difference in your final piece. I don't think I'm going to add a ton of this, just because, you know, I really like what's going on here. Let's see, I don't really want to add that one. Let's do, oh, this one's pretty. Let's do this one. This one's got some pink to it, which is really nice. Add some of that one too. Again, it's a great way to just incorporate some of your scrap pieces. You just never know what you're gonna get, and it's super fun to play around with, just to see what your final outcome is. I think I'm gonna leave that. I'll do another little piece here. Now, if you want more of a solid look, like you could fill this up with different colors of frit. You could add some Millefiore pieces in here. If you wanted to build like a scene or something like that, like if I were to lay down like light blue frit or something, and then build like a little scene on top of that, that's very nice. I've actually put in like copper wire trees in molds before, and that can be really beautiful. So just whatever you want to create with yours. I just like a little more freeform. I love the dichroic, so that's what I'm choosing to do here. But really, they're so versatile in what you can do. I have done some that literally, like I did a cross one time, it's on my TikTok, that was just like Millefiore. So that's fun to do. One second here, let's see if I've got anything I want to add. And some Marini. Marinis are fun. Just make sure whatever you add is the same coefficient. So like right now I'm working with the 90 COE. I do have 96 as well, but it's very important not to mix them. So you just want to make sure that you do not mix your coefficients. Okay, so I'm liking what's going on here, and I'm going to start finishing it off. So to finish off your mold pieces, it's very important not to use frit. So I've done this in the past. If you put frit, even just coarse frit on here, what happens is it traps the air bubbles. And so you're not going to end up with a clear cover on your piece. It's going to be cloudy looking, sometimes even like strangely crackled looking. It's not the best look in the world. So it is best to use pieces of clear. So I'm just going to start layering this on here. You want to make it thick. So I'm going to do a couple of layers of it. for molds, you actually need to fill them up more than you think you do. So it's important to fill it up past the point here, past the layer, because once it melts, it's going to fill in all these crannies. It's going to shrink significantly. So I'm going to just start laying some scrap clear here. If you're using your dichroic and you don't, now that's a good point. If you want the metallic layer of your dichroic to not have that capped in clear look, so it will look completely different, you don't have to cap this in clear. I just choose to do that because I like the way that it looks, but I have done it before where, you know, where I left the natural state of the dichroic. So that is also an option. You just get different results with that. You know, it's fun to play around with. Sometimes I'll unintentionally leave spots that are not completely covered, which maybe I'll do that today. We'll see. And then that way you can see, you know, when it's capped and when it's not. So I'll just leave some blank spots, and that way you can see the difference. But it's a great way to use up your scrap. So never waste your glass. If you're trimming off pieces, always save them. I like to keep mine in just like a jewelry organizer, again, bead organizer, I guess it's called. So it's a good way to keep your glass organized. Okay, I'm gonna cover around here. Just be mindful, like I said, if you do not do more layers of the clear, you may have some of your dichroic shining through. But you just want to use chunky bits of glass. Actually, I need some chunkier bits. These are not as chunky as I like. Let me cut some here. Do I have any sitting out? No, of course I don't. Okay, so I'm gonna cut some. Make sure I've got my right coefficient. Yep, we're good. Okay, so it's a good way to use up some of this natural rolled edge as well. I'm just gonna cut some glass here because I've used up all my chunky pieces. So I'm gonna do that. Since I'm not measuring anything, I'm just gonna score my glass. Cut my glass. I'm going to use my running pliers. So I'm going to use my running pliers here, lining it up with the line. Look how nice that did. Doesn't really matter so much because I'm going to cut it apart, but it's still satisfying. And then I'm going to use my nippers again. We're just going to cut some of this up. Get some chunky pieces. And by chunky pieces, I mean they're probably an inch or so. I like to do mine kind of irregular, like not all square, because especially with molds like this where it's got a lot of curves, it's nice to have triangles. Triangles are your friends when you're trying to cover curves. And I like to leave the area around the hole kind of blank. I mean, you could in theory cover it. It's just I don't want to have to drill the hole out again later because that's a whole nother step that I don't want to deal with right now. So there's that. Do I want to leave some spots? Yeah, sure. Why not? Why not? I'll leave that little spot right there. I don't really want to though. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. And just make sure your pieces are clean. I usually wipe mine with a rag or shirt, whatever I have on hand. So I'm just stacking these. Again, I think I'm gonna leave, debating whether I want to leave this section natural dichroic. I think I will, and I think I'm gonna leave this little spot here by the hole. I'm gonna leave that without any clear on top. But you do want to make sure you fill it enough. So I am gonna add some more glass. And again, chunky pieces here. I'm gonna leave that, and I am gonna cover right here. So it's gonna look strange because it totally is not the way that our minds think about filling in areas, but it will turn out beautiful. All right, so we're gonna leave that. You just wanna make sure there's enough glass in here that when it does shrink, that you're not going to like lose your definition, especially on pieces that are very specific shapes. You just don't want to lose that definition. So, all right, so I'm gonna leave it like that. That should be plenty of glass. It is gonna shrink a little bit. Usually I use a little bit more clear to fill in, but again, I'm gonna leave some spots, that natural dichroic, so you can see what that looks like when it comes out. And then we're going to pause here and move on to our firing. Okay, so we're gonna fire next. Okay, here we are, time to fire. So I have my base, this is my base, and it does not matter whether you put kiln paper or anything on your base as long as you've got the mold here. So you want to make sure that your mold is in the middle. You see it fits perfectly. And what I like to do is I like to go in and put it in the microwave before I put my lid on, just in case I need to adjust anything. Sometimes things move when you're transferring them. So that way, you know, especially with smaller pieces, that kind of thing, I can kind of adjust them if I need to. So I'm put my lid on. Okay. Very important thing, you want to make sure that your microwave is not the one that you use for food. There are some kind of toxic fumes that come out, and you don't want to be heating up food that you do your glass in. That's very important. As far as wattage, the microwave that I use is a 1200 watt. You know, if you're using a lower wattage, it's gonna take longer. But I've had some really good results with the 1200 watt. I've been very pleased with it. Another thing, some people don't keep their tray in. I do because I'm very safe with mine. You know, I'm very cautious of not leaving my kiln in the same position to avoid any kind of heat buildup or anything like that, any hot spots. I've not had any trouble with leaving my tray. Some people use ceramic stilts inside without the tray to hold up their kiln. That's fine. That's fine. It's your preference, whatever kind of microwave that you're working with, however you feel comfortable. So one thing I like to do is I kind of don't start in the middle. I usually start off to one side. So why I do that is because every microwave has hot spots. So what we're trying to do with microwave kilns is to have the most even heating possible. So there are some things that we can do to kind of mitigate those hot spots, make sure that our piece is heating evenly. And this is also going to prolong the life of your mold. So if you're ending up with hot spots, that means that your mold is going to be absorbing that heat hotter in some places than others, and that can cause cracking. So you want to make sure to, you know, keep your heat as even as possible to ensure the best results. So we are in the microwave, shutting the door. What I like to do is low and slow. So that means I start at half power. So with mine, it's a 5. So I'm going to 5. For the larger kiln, I like to do 5 minutes at a time. So we're doing 5 minutes. Let that go for 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my lid. So that's one of those things that we can do to help with the heating, to make it more even, rotating the lid and also changing the position of the kiln in the microwave, and that's also going to help prolong the life of your glass tray. So 5 minutes are up. I will show you. I'm going to rotate the lid, change its position. Safety. You want to always have heat resistant gloves. So these are the ones that I like to use. They came with my kit. Actually this one came with my kit. I think I bought this one later because this one had a little bit of an accident. So this is what can happen when you touch hot things. Your gloves melt and it can burn you. So, you know, we're dealing with glass here. We got to think about safety. These are heat resistant gloves. I really like the ones that have the grippers for, you know, obvious reasons. It's harder to hold on to things if you can't get a good grip on them. I prefer these thinner gloves. I do have these thicker ones that I bought, and they're fine. I just feel like I have more dexterity with the smaller ones. These are kind of nice because they do protect your arm a little bit more. So I think I got these off of like AliExpress or Temu or something, but they're very thick. Like, they're good heat resistant gloves, but I do prefer the smaller ones just for the dexterity reasons. They do get a little bit hot because they are smaller and thinner. So, you know, just to keep in mind, the kiln gets very, very hot. So what I like to do every 5 minutes with my large kiln, especially not necessarily with the mold, but like doing other things, just loose glass, is to check the position of things. So once you start incorporating heat, things like to jump around a little bit because the heat makes them move. So, you know, I like to check on my pieces, make sure everything's staying where it needs to stay. And you have to be very cautious of the heat. That's when your tweezers come in handy. So when you're checking your piece, these are my long tweezers. So, you know, these paired with your heat resistant gloves, again, I like these because of the dexterity, like when I'm using my tweezers. These help move your glass pieces. Do not try, once you've started heating, do not try and adjust the position of your glass just wearing gloves. I've made that mistake. I have had gloves melted to my piece. I've burnt myself. It's not a good time. So just use some safety, okay? Just some tips for you. Another thing you want to do is invest in some good heat safety eyewear. A big mistake that I made when I started with glass was when your glass starts getting hot enough, it starts to glow. This is not safe to look at with your eyes. So I started getting headaches. I didn't know this. I hadn't been, you know, doing my research, doing my homework. There weren't any kind of safety precautions in what little information my kiln came with. So yeah, the first month I would say that I used my kiln, I started getting headaches. I was not being safety mindful. So please get you some welding glasses are great. I can't remember if these were welding glasses or not, but they're specific for glass working, and that kind of light that you're going to be looking at. So be cautious. So yeah, you want these. We're almost to our 5 minutes because I talk the whole time, but I'll show you here in a few seconds. I won't need my tweezers because the good thing with molds, unless you're like doing a specific like pattern or something, you don't usually need to adjust anything in your mold. I like to keep everything safe, away from anything that can't help like handle any heat. So you know, I don't have any curtains or anything near me. It's a good idea to have good ventilation in your microwave area, good fan or window. Some people like to do it in their garage. I don't, because of the cold. Cold can be very bad when you're working with glass, so you don't want to risk any kind of heat shock or anything like that. Okay, time to move. So changing positions. It doesn't have to be very far or anything. I usually just change sides. Then the rotation. I'm not really looking at anything right now because it's not going to be glowing, or I'm not adjusting anything. So literally just a quarter turn. So I just lift up because you don't want to move anything. Turning, set it back down. Again, this is just to keep the heat going even. And I'm going to keep it at half power. Another 5 minutes. Okay. The next time we do this, in another 5 minutes, I'm going to increase it another power notch. So we're going to gradually increase our heat, and that, you know, low and slow. You don't want to do any heat shock on your mold, or you might end up with a crack. So just be mindful of that when you're starting out. You know, rotating, all of these things can help you like reduce cracks and keep your stuff heating more evenly. So I will see you back in another 5 minutes. We're going to rotate again. Okay, it's been another 5 minutes. At this point, I am going to start putting on my eyewear, just because sometimes it can start melting sooner than you think it's going to. So I'm going to start moving, looking at it. It's not getting hot enough yet. You'll know when it starts getting hot, your pieces are going to start glowing orange. So I'm going to start raising my power level here. So I'm doing a 6, another 5 minutes. I probably will never go to full power on this. I don't like going up to full power. For those of you that do have lower wattages, eventually you probably will go up to high power. I still would start at half. But yeah, I'd never go to full power. So we're going to do another 5 minutes. Again, it's going to start glowing orange. So with molds, depending on how hot and melted you want your piece to be, usually with dichroic, I don't let it get to, so it'll go from orange to like a really bright yellow, almost white color when it gets really, really, really hot. I don't like to do that in molds. One, because it gets too hot. Another thing with dichroic, it can cause I say this wrong. It'll devitrify. Devitrification. There we go. It basically overcooks your dichroic and you lose your vibrant colors. Some of them, the metallic coating starts breaking apart. It turns very unpleasing colors. So that's something you don't want to happen. Maybe you do, some people might, but if you're seeing a loss of color on your dichroic glass, it means that it's gotten too hot. So you just want to back off of it a little bit. So with the mold, what I'm looking for is just an even melt. So you want all of the pieces, the individual pieces, to melt into one solid form. I like to have a smooth top on mine. Some people, you may like to have a little more texture. So you can, I mean, you could stop it, you know, once you get to that orange glow, it's called a tack fuse. So if you wanted to keep the texture of the individual pieces, then you would stop it at your orange glow. That's your tack fuse stage. I like at least a full fuse on pendants in my molds. It's just an aesthetic thing, just something I like. If you like to overdo your dichroic, then go to, you know, the bright white stage, we'll call it, sure. But I don't care for that, and I think it puts more stress on your mold, and they can be very fragile. So I would be very cautious of getting that hot frequently with them, because they can crack really easily. So I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to stop it when it starts turning orange, so that you can see, you know, what I'm looking for when it's ready. So I'll come back here when it's ready. Again, I'm not going to full power. I'm going to gradually increase every 5 minutes. It usually takes, with a large kiln and a mold, I'd say about 25 minutes. 25 minutes to get to a full fuse. So in my microwave, it might take you longer if you've got lower wattage. So we'll be back when it's ready to take out. Okay, it's ready to get out. So I'll show you very carefully. Hopefully you can see. Oh, it's glowing. It's glowing. Okay, now, very important, we do not leave a hot kiln in the microwave to cool. So I'm setting mine over here. What I have set up, what I have set up down here, it's bricks. I've got bricks like these. And then I've actually got a baking sheet on top of that. So you just want to make sure to put it on something that's heat resistant, away from anything that might catch fire from too much heat. So this is good. We don't take the lid off until it's absolutely cooled. So it's going to take a few hours for this to cool down enough for me to handle it. So I'll show you the final result and we will take it from there. So thanks for tuning in. Everything has cooled off now. So here is the final piece. So as you can see, turned out really well. Got that nice like patchwork effect here. These pretty dichroic colors. Already got the hole. So it's ready for a cord, or you could put a pinch bail if you want to do that. Here are the spots. I don't know if you can tell the difference where I left it uncapped from the clear. So you can see it's rougher here. That's that natural metallic sheen of the dichroic. But thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, message. I'm happy to answer any questions. And hopefully I'll get to make more videos. Hopefully I won't wait another year to make another video. But, life happens. But if you have any questions, let me know. And thanks for watching.